The message arrived in the dead silence of space, a broadcast signal ancient in its delivery, spanning the abyss with a quiet authority that shook the foundations of human existence. Humanity is hereby outlawed by decree of the Galactic Senate. No sanctuary, no trade, no recognition. All civilizations will comply, or they too will be erased. The words cut deeper than any war declaration. To be outlawed was one thing. To be erased meant something else entirely. It meant that humanity was no longer just an enemy. They were a threat, not to a nation, not to an empire, but to reality itself. Captain Elias Voss let the words hang. In the sterile air of his command bridge, his breath slow, measured. Around him, the officers of the Seraphim, one of the last human deep space vessels, remained deathly still, their faces pale under the soft glow of the holoscreen. He had expected war. He had prepared for retaliation. But this was something else. The outposts fell first, not through fire and war, but through silence. Human colonies in the outer systems sent distress calls, ghostly messages of confusion and fear, before vanishing entirely. Ships sent to investigate found nothing but emptied worlds. No bodies, no wreckage, not even a trace of conflict, just absence. The Galactic Senate had not destroyed humanity. They had made it disappear. The first time Rook encountered the phenomenon in the field, it nearly shattered his mind. The Black Ops veteran had led infiltration missions against hostile alien factions before, slipping through the shadows of enemy worlds, dismantling threats before they ever reached human soil. But this was beyond warfare. His squad had been dispatched to Eliquin 5, a bustling trade world where humans had once been tolerated, if not welcomed. The planet had been a crossroads of interstellar commerce, its cities a labyrinth of neon-lit streets and towering spaceports. But as Rook and his men moved through the eerily abandoned cityscape, a sickening realization set in. The aliens were gone. Not dead. Not evacuated, just missing. No signs of struggle. No signs of forced removal. The great crystalline towers of the Zirathi stood intact. Market stalls lay untouched, food still steaming under preservation fields. The air was thick with the quiet hum of machinery still running, but no hands to operate them. It was as if the entire planet had vanished mid-breath. Dr. Mira Chowdhury sat before the command deck's central console, staring at the data feeds pouring in from dozens of human reconnaissance ships. The reports were identical, world after world. No signs of war, no Senate forces, no blockades, just emptiness. It made no sense. If the Senate had outlawed humanity, why wasn't there an extermination fleet? Why weren't there battle cruisers hunting them down? Why wasn't humanity facing the war they had braced for? Instead, the galaxy had turned off the lights and disappeared, as if hiding, as if running. The thought sent an icy shiver through her. The Galactic Senate had declared war, yet it was they who had vanished. What in the depths of space were they afraid of? The answer came on the 8th day. The Seraphim had intercepted a garbled transmission from deep Senate space, a distress signal, broken and riddled with static but unmistakably desperate. Voss listened to it in silence, jaw clenched. The voice was alien, strained, its cadence unfamiliar. "We made a mistake, you were right, No, they were never meant to. Static. A single gasp of breath. Then a phrase that shattered the already fragile remains of human understanding. "They see us. We are already dead." And then, silence. Nothing more. The signal had originated from a Senate-controlled world, one of their core planets. A world that should have been untouchable. But now, it too was gone. Rook clenched his fists as the realization hit him like a gravitic shockwave. The galaxy wasn't hunting humanity. It was hiding from them. But from what? From what humanity had done? From what humanity was? Or from something else entirely? Something even they had yet to see? The answer waited in the void, wrapped in shadows, deeper than the cold reaches of space. And if the Galactic Senate had buried the truth beneath layers of fear and silence, then humanity would dig it out. They would make the galaxy remember, no matter the cost. The Seraphim drifted in the abyss, a lone ember in a galaxy that had turned dark. Voss stood at the command bridge watching the void stretch infinitely before him. The Senate had spoken. The galaxy had vanished. And now, humanity was alone. But silence was never just silence. Not in war, not in diplomacy, and certainly not in fear. Somewhere out there, something still watched. The crew worked tirelessly, analyzing every sliver of data from the Senate distress signal. It had come from Xiphos 7, a core world, a planet that should have been bristling with fleets, bureaucrats, and Senate loyalists. Instead, it had gone dark. Voss made his decision in an instant. They were going in. Rook led the infiltration team. The dropship hummed beneath him, the low-frequency vibrations thrumming through his bones as they descended into the planetary exosphere. Around him, his squad sat in silence, weapons checked, eyes hollow. No one spoke of the last mission, of Eliquin 5. No one wanted to admit that they were walking into another graveyard, but this time there was no mistaking the wrongness of it. The moment their ship crossed into the upper atmosphere, the sensors flickered, a disruption field. Someone, or something, didn't want them here. Rook activated the manual override, forcing the ship through the interference, and then everything cut out. No comms. No instruments, just dead air. And outside the viewport, a cityscape frozen in time. The streets of Xiphos 7 lay abandoned, much like Eliquin 5. Towers of steel and light stood eerily untouched, power grids still humming, flickering signs still advertising to no one. But this time, there was something else. Shadows. Not the natural kind cast by structures and light, but something deeper. Moving, writhing at the edges of perception. Mira's breath hitched in her throat as she stepped forward, scanning the buildings, the doorways, the empty markets. She felt it, the weight of something unseen, something shifting in the stillness. And then, a flicker. A figure darting between the ruined storefronts. Not human. Not entirely alien either. Something wrong. Voss watched the feed from the ship, his grip tightening on the console. The team was not alone. Somewhere in the ruins, something had survived the purge. The Senate had hidden. The galaxy had vanished. But here on this dead world, something was still watching them, and it wasn't afraid. Mira turned sharply, her pulse spiking. The figure stood there now, motionless in the dim light. Not moving, not breathing, just watching. A humanoid shape, but blurred around the edges as if reality itself refused to fully perceive it. Then, in a whispering voice that should not exist, it spoke. "You should not have come." The ambush Rook reacted instinctively. The voice drifted through the air. His rifle was up, his team forming a defensive perimeter. The figure did not move. And then, without warning, the entire city trembled. Lights flickered. The air hummed with an unnatural vibration, a low reverberating sound that dug into the bones. And from the shadows they came. Dozens, no, hundreds, figures like the first, their forms flickering, shifting between tangible and impossible. They did not charge. They did not threaten. They simply stood, watching, surrounding, waiting. Mira's fingers trembled as she tried to process what she was seeing. These were not Senate soldiers. They were not hostile species. They were something else. And then it struck her. The Senate hadn't just hidden. They had changed. The message left behind. The lead figure stepped forward, its face shifting. One moment alien, the next human. A cruel mimicry. A reflection of something it had once known. "They tried to erase you," it whispered, its voice overlapping in layers as if spoken from multiple mouths. "But it does not work on you." Mira's heart pounded. The silent verdict. The Senate's weapon. The thing that had erased entire civilizations. They had turned it on humanity, but humanity had endured. And now, the Senate had fled, abandoning their own kind to a fate worse than death. These creatures, these echoes, were what remained. Voss's voice cut through the comms, his tone sharp. The interference had lifted. Get out of there. Now. Rook didn't hesitate. His team fell back, weapons raised, moving swiftly toward the extraction point. But as they pulled away, the figures did not follow. They simply watched, and as the dropship lifted into the sky, Mira saw it, carved into the ground, etched into the city streets in massive alien letters, an unmistakable warning. Run. Back aboard the Seraphim, the gravity of the revelation settled over them like a suffocating weight. Humanity had not just been outlawed. The silent verdict had failed. The Senate had tried to erase them, but something had gone wrong, and now they weren't the ones being hunted. The rest of the galaxy was. The warning carved into the city streets burned in their minds. Run! The silent verdict had failed. Humanity had not been erased. But what had happened instead was something far worse. Something even the Galactic Senate had not foreseen. And now, the ones who had condemned them had disappeared. Hiding. Running. Afraid. But afraid of what? The Seraphim drifted in the void, silent and unseen. Voss stood at the bridge, staring at the data feed looping on the central console. The mission to Xiphos 7 had confirmed what they had feared. Something had changed the galaxy at a fundamental level. The Senate hadn't deployed a war fleet. They hadn't sent bounty hunters or assassins. They had simply vanished, and they had left something behind. Something that was watching. Mira's mind raced as she sifted through the gathered data. The entities they had encountered on Xiphos 7 weren't just ghosts of the erased. They were something more. They weren't attacking. They weren't hunting. They were waiting. For what? What? Did they know that humanity didn't? Why was the galaxy so afraid? And then, buried deep within the encrypted archives recovered from the Senate's data vaults, she found something chilling. A single phrase, hidden beneath layers of failed security protocols. The silent verdict was never meant to contain them. Her blood ran cold. The Senate had tried to erase humanity, but something else had been erased instead. Rook sat in the armory, reassembling his rifle in silence. His team had barely made it out of Xiphos 7, and yet the mission felt unfinished. The creatures they had encountered, echoes, reflections, something wrong, hadn't moved against them. They had let them go, and that was what disturbed him the most. No soldier lets an enemy walk away unless they know something worse is coming. Something inevitable, and that meant only one thing. This war. The one humanity thought they had been forced into was not about them. It had never been. Voss didn't trust the Visari. No one did. A reclusive, highly advanced species that had remained neutral in every major galactic conflict. The Visari were keepers of knowledge, hoarders of secrets. If anyone knew what had happened to the Senate, what had truly happened to the galaxy, it was them. But knowledge came at a price, and when the Seraphim's encrypted distress signal finally reached the Visari homeworld, the response was immediate. You should not have contacted us. And then, moments later, we will trade. But the price is high. Voss set his jaw. He already knew what they wanted. People, not as prisoners, not as slaves, but as offerings. The rendezvous took place in the cold, dead orbit of Uruk's wake, a lifeless world long abandoned by all sentient species. Voss, Mira, and Rook stood at the edge of the docking bay, watching as the Visari delegation emerged from their sleek obsidian vessel. Their forms were obscured beneath flowing robes, their elongated heads hidden in the shadows of their hoods. But their voices carried the weight of something ancient. You seek knowledge of the silent verdict. You seek the truth of what you have become. Voss held their gaze, his expression unreadable. And what are we? A pause. Then, in a whispering voice that crawled beneath the skin, the Visari speaker answered, You are the last mistake the galaxy will ever make. The data exchange was brief, but the weight of what they had learned threatened to crush them. The silent verdict had never been a weapon of destruction. It was a prison, a containment protocol designed to erase an entity from reality itself. And it had worked, until humanity appeared, until something in the human mind, some ineffable, untamed spark, had broken the system. Instead of erasing humanity, the silent verdict had erased everything else. But now the prison was breaking, and the thing that had once been locked away, it was waking up. Mira's hands trembled as she pieced it together. The entities they had seen on Zypho 7, the shifting, half-formed things lurking at the edge of perception. They were fragments, not ghosts, not echoes, pieces of something that should not exist. Something that had been erased so long ago that even the Senate had forgotten what it was. And now, thanks to humanity, it was clawing its way back into the universe. Rook gritted his teeth. The Senate had run. The entire galaxy had vanished into the shadows, hiding from something that they had feared for millennia. Not from humans, from the thing that was now waking up. From the true mistake. Humanity wasn't the outlaw. They were the catalyst. And now the only question left was, had they come too late to stop it, or had they already lost? The weight of the revelation settled over the crew like the crushing pressure of a dying star. The silent verdict had never been meant for humanity. It had been meant for something else, something so ancient, so catastrophic, that the Galactic Senate had chosen to erase it from existence rather than fight it, and humanity, in their defiance, their refusal to disappear, had broken the lock. The thing that had once been imprisoned in the void was waking up, and now there was no one left to stop it. The countdown begins. The Visari had fled before they could ask any more questions. The moment the exchange was complete, they had vanished into the void, their ships burning slipstream trails across the fabric of space. That alone was enough to confirm their worst fears. Even the Visari, a species that had never feared anything, in recorded history, were running. And if they were running, then the time for questions was over. It was time to act. Voss stood at the center of the war room, staring at the holographic projections flickering across the command table. The anomalies were spreading. More and more Senate-controlled worlds were going dark. Not just abandoned, not just silent, vanishing. Just like before. Just like when the silent verdict had been activated the first time. Except this time there was no reset button. This time, there was nothing holding it back. And now the choice was clear. They had to find the control nexus of the silent verdict and shut it down, for good, or the entire galaxy would be erased. The assault on the Nexus Rook's squad moved through the shattered remains of Elysium Prime, a once mighty Senate, capital world now reduced to a graveyard of flickering shadows. The Nexus was here, buried deep beneath the surface, hidden away beneath layers of forgotten history and deception. They had barely made it planetside before the interference had begun. Glitches in reality, entire sections of the city folding in on themselves, looping, breaking, twisting. Time didn't work properly here anymore. Neither did logic. It was as if the universe itself was unraveling, and at the center of it all, the entrance to the silent verdict's core hummed with an unnatural resonance. Waiting. Calling. The deeper they descended, the worse it became. Mira clutched her head, her breathing ragged as her thoughts splintered under the pressure of something vast, something sentient. The walls of the underground corridors shifted as they passed, reshaping themselves, as if alive. Rook led the way, his rifle steady despite the way the air itself seemed to ripple around them. They had faced monsters before. They had faced war, extinction, the abyss of space. But this was the thing that nightmares feared. At the heart of the facility, they found it, the core. A monolithic structure pulsing with a cold, lifeless energy, a machine that had rewritten reality once before and could do so again. But it wasn't dormant. It was cracking, splitting apart at the seams, as if something inside it was pushing to get out. And then, without warning, it spoke. Not in words, not in sound, in memory. Visions flooded their minds, a time before the Senate, a time before the first great empires, a time when something else had ruled the galaxy, something that had been too powerful, too unknowable, too infinite, something that had threatened the very fabric of existence itself. The Senate had not won a war against it. They had cheated. They had erased it, locked it away in the depths of space, buried under layers of reality itself, and humanity, in their stubborn refusal to be erased, had undone it all. The choice Voss gritted his teeth, his hands gripping the console. There was a way to stop it, one final failsafe built into the silent verdict. A reset. They could activate it again. They could erase the anomaly, restore order, put everything back the way it was. But there was a cost. This time it wouldn't just erase the anomaly. It would erase humanity too. For real. This time. No resistance. No survival, just gone. Mira turned to him, her expression raw, pleading. There has to be another way. There wasn't. Not this time. Not anymore. Rook clenched his jaw. They had come all this way, survived against impossible odds, defied extinction itself, and now the only choice left was death or destruction. Erase themselves to save the galaxy, or let the anomaly consume everything. Neither was victory. Neither was humanity. And that's when Voss made the choice. The third option, not to erase humanity, not to erase the anomaly, to rewrite the entire system. If the silent verdict could rewrite history, then maybe, just maybe, they could rewrite themselves. The last rewrite. The command was entered, the system engaged, reality bent, time shattered, and everything changed. In the aftermath, as the system powered down, as the echoes of the old reality faded, they opened their eyes to a new galaxy, one where humanity was still here, but the anomaly was not. The silent verdict had been undone, not erased, not rewritten, balanced, and for the first time in untold millennia, the galaxy was truly free. The silence that followed was unlike any before it, not the dead hush of an abandoned world, not the eerie void of vanished civilizations. This was true silence, the kind that came after something impossible, after the breaking of cosmic laws, after the resetting of reality itself. Humanity still existed. The galaxy still existed. But everything was different now. Voss stood at the edge of the Seraphim's observation deck, staring out into the abyss. The stars burned just as they always had, but he could feel it. Something fundamental had shifted. The silent verdict had been undone, not erased, not weaponized, but rewritten, balanced. The system that had once determined who should exist and who should disappear was now neutral, blind, unable to judge. There would be no more erasures, no more rewritten histories. What had once been hidden away in the depths of the void, the anomaly, the unknowable horror that had haunted the galaxies, it was gone, not destroyed, not defeated, just gone, as if it had never been there at all. And maybe, in a way, that was the greatest victory of all. Mira stared at the final readings from the core, the last pulses of energy fading into nothingness. The machine had done something even the Senate had never attempted. It had not erased. It had released. The anomaly had been unmade, not through force or war, but through the simple act of letting go. For all their arrogance, for all their defiance, humanity had not chosen destruction. They had chosen something else entirely. Freedom. For themselves. For the galaxy. For everything that had ever existed, and everything that ever would. And yet, there was no celebration, no grand victory, just a heavy, lingering silence. As if the universe itself was trying to understand what had just happened, Rook sat in the armory, hands clenched around the edge of a metal table. His squad had survived. His team had made it out. But the war they had been fighting had never really been theirs, had it? It had always been a war of gods and ghosts, of decisions made long before humanity had ever reached the stars. And yet somehow they had changed. Everything. Not through overwhelming power, not through sheer force of will, but because when given the choice between destruction and survival, they had found another way. The galaxy was waking up. One by one, the hidden worlds, the lost civilizations, the planets that had gone dark, they were returning. The Visari were the first to make contact. Their transmissions were cautious, uncertain, as if they weren't sure whether they were speaking to the same humans they had once feared. And maybe they weren't. Maybe humanity had changed in ways even they couldn't understand. The Senate, what was left of it, sent no messages. No decrees, only silence. Maybe they had fled. Maybe they had simply faded into irrelevance, their empire crumbling under the weight of its own secrets. Or maybe, just maybe, they had seen the truth for what it was. That power was never meant to be absolute, that some things were not meant to be controlled, and that humanity in the end had proven something no other species had. Not strength, not dominance, but the ability to break the cycle, to say no to the laws of extinction and rebirth, to create something new, something better. The stars stretched out before them, infinite once more, not as a battlefield, not as a prison, but as a frontier, and for the first time in recorded history, the galaxy was truly free, because of them, because of humanity. And that, more than anything, was what the Senate had always feared. Not war, not destruction, but change, the unknown. The possibility that humanity, in their endless defiance, in their refusal to follow the rules, might have been exactly what the universe needed all along. Chaitur. Message came 3 weeks after the reset. A single transmission encoded in an ancient dialect long thought lost, sent from deep within uncharted space. No name, no coordinates, just a simple phrase, repeating on an endless loop. We remember. Voss stared at the transmission, the weight of it pressing against his chest. It wasn't from the Senate. It wasn't from the Visari. It wasn't from anyone known. Someone else had been watching. Someone who had seen what they did, and they remembered. Mira ran the signal through every known linguistic model, through every historical database. No match. It wasn't a warning. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement of fact. Whoever had sent it hadn't just been hiding. They had been waiting. Waiting for the galaxy to be rewritten. Waiting for the prison to be undone. Waiting for humanity to prove what they were capable of. And now, they were ready to. A location. A place outside the reach of any known star chart. Deep in the void. Beyond the edges of even the most advanced civilizations. The kind of place something ancient would wait. He tightened his grip on his rifle, adrenaline already coursing through his veins. They had spent so long fighting ghosts of the past, but now something real was calling to them. Something that had survived the first erasure. Something that had watched the Senate fall. Something that knew the truth. And they wanted humanity to find them. The Seraphim's engines flared to life, piercing the darkness of deep space. A new frontier lay before them, untouched by Senate law, untouched by history itself. And as the ship vanished into the abyss, Voss spoke the words that had carried humanity through every trial, every war, every impossible fight. We go forward. No matter what's waiting for us, we go forward. Somewhere in the depths of the void beyond the reach of time, something stirred, and for the first time in millennia, it turned its gaze toward the stars once more. It had been waiting, and now, humanity was coming.